Hello and welcome to SBK Edge Rush Extra. How about this? You've allowed me back in the studio in back-to-back weeks, Tom.
2 weeks running. I love to see it now.
Privileged. I'm privileged. Of course I'm in the house. It's NFL London.
Yep.
So I've had a whirlwind 7 days, but not nearly as much as the New York Football Giants, who are heading to town this Sunday to take on the Green Bay Packers. And quite possibly, Tom, you could be starting at quarterback for them.
I know. They've got so many injuries. So I don't know how they're 3-1, I have to say now. I mean, is it just Saquon Barkley? Or
Here's a question for you. If they get the win, and I know it's a big if, and we're going to break down the game in a bit more detail. They get the win. They got a 4-1.
I know.
Tails up. Are they a sneaky playoff side? We've got to take them seriously if they're 4-1 in the East, don't we?
I mean, you have to. 4-1 is a serious record after 5 weeks. I don't know. I'm still unconvinced. If Saquon keeps running the rock as he's doing, then, the Giants are going to prove hard to beat. But they haven't got any pass offense, really. I know Dan Jones could be back, but at the same time, I'm not 100% convinced. And the Packers should provide a big test for them this week.
Well, let's talk Giants offense first and with the Daniel Jones situation, because they have got a serious problem. Tyrod Taylor, their backup quarterback in concussion protocol. So they have a third stringer on the depth chart. Some teams, of course, go into their roster without a number 3. So they've called up Davis Webb. He's been around the organization for a while from the practice squad. Mm-hmm. Tyrod looks like he won't be able to play. Daniel Jones, at the time of recording this, could be good to go. But let's say he's not. Let's say he isn't ready to go and they go Davis Webb. How significantly does that affect this line?
I think quite significantly. Different cadence. We've seen when Bailey Zappi came in for the Patriots, like as soon as he came in, full start, because they're just not used to his cadence.
Just quick one on that. Bailey Zappi, best named quarterback in the history of the NFL?
100%.
Sure.
It completely depends on whether Dan Jones can play or not. If he doesn't, I think we'll see a lot of Wildcat again with Saquon. It seemed to work last week.
Right.
But it will be the difference maker. Yeah. I mean, if he plays, they're going to go through the air a lot more. If not, then we're just going to be seeing run after run after run.
One dimension. And of course, this is up against one of the best defenses in the league. This is the problem with the Packers right now. Every team in the NFL is flawed right now to a stronger or lesser degree. Yeah. The Packers' problem is having one of the all-time great quarterbacks and not giving him a receiving core that he can gel with and be cohesive with right now. But do you think that will change? Do you think this Sunday could be the moment where we see consistently through 4 quarters this aerial attack finally starting to roll?
I really hope it is, but I doubt it. I mean, I'm not a believer in this receiving group. I would love
any of them.
I think Romeo Doubs is good. He's impressed in the last couple of weeks, but Christian Watson's been really disappointing for my fancy. I mean, he ran in a touchdown last week, of course, but at the same time, he's not really showing the level that we expected. Alan Lazard's performing. We know he's going to perform, but at the same time, he's not really a proper wide receiver one. He did make a big catch last Sunday. Aaron Rodgers wasn't at his best, I have to say, but I expect him to step up. First time in London. I think the Packers will win, but they're 8-point favourites on the spread. I think that's probably about right. The over and under set at 41. Now, I know we have different opinions here. I'm going to take the unders. I envisage around 24-16 to the Packers, which would make the spread right as well at 8 points. But I know you like the overs.
I do. I think at that level, at that number, and a lot of this depends on whether Daniel Jones starts or not. Yeah. I think if Daniel Jones starts, and right now, as I say, time of recording this, he could be good to go. I would look at the over there because I still think they may be able to put up points on this Packers defense. And I think the Packers will stack it up against the Giants. So I think this is going to be a vintage Aaron Rodgers performance. It's a status game for him. I'm buying into that receiving core a lot more and not being alarmist about it. I think as the season goes on, they'll get on the same page. And I think this could be a big game for them. So I like the over.
Cool. I mean, if Randall Cobb turns up in that slot, you never know.
He's been doing it for years, Tom. He's been doing it for years. Right, next up, we'll talk Jets Fins.
Yep.
Now, another quarterback situation here, of course. Deeply distressing situation. A lot of talk about how Tua Tagovailoa has been handled by the Dolphins, by the NFL. Either way, he's not going to play in this one. Teddy Bridgewater, maybe the very best at covering the spread, right? Teddy is known for this in these circles. Check these numbers out. In 63 games, Teddy Bridgewater against the spread, covering the spread, 42, 20, and 1.
I mean, it's a good stat. Yeah, he is. It's a very
Teddy
good stat.
covers.
If you've got a backup QB, I mean, it's what you want to see, isn't it? Someone who puts your team in with a chance of winning. And Teddy seems to be doing that on a regular basis. Right. Whether Tyreek and Jalen Waddle will be the same with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm rather than Tua, well, that's to be seen. But I saw Tyreek was asked a question, and he said it didn't matter who was a QB. He would still produce the same numbers. So we'll see this week.
I think as backups go, he is as good as it gets for 2 reasons. 29 years old, been around the block as a seasoned pro. We were chatting to Shane Vereen about this on the podcast last week. One of the big challenges, Shane was saying, when you're in the huddle is when a backup quarterback comes in, do they have authority? Do they understand what's going on? The limited amount of reps they have during the week, the limitations they have in terms of dealing with the starters means that is pivotal and critical. The moment that shredded out comes in, I don't think this guy's in control, that can be a problem. So obviously rookies and untested backups have that problem. Teddy's a starter in the NFL for years. He won't have that problem.
Yeah.
He's a great fit for the McDaniel offense. I think it's a drop-off to a degree, but not a massive one.
No, and we know that Teddy can do it two ways as well. We know he can throw the ball. We know he can run the ball as well. So he's still going to be a weapon in this offense. And I expect Miami to produce again. But I have to say, I'm going the Jets here.
You and I are going to disagree a lot this week, Tom, by the look of it. You're going the Jets. The line is what, 3?
Yeah, the line's at 3 points at the moment with the Dolphins being favourite. The over and under is set 46. I like the Jets money line. I think they're gonna produce here. Now I know last week they played the Steelers. Steelers, in my opinion, are the worst team in football right now. They should be 0-4. I mean, how they lost to the Bengals how they beat the Bengals in week 1 is ridiculous. I mean, I do actually know how that happened. I mean, the Bengals had 5 turnovers and they missed a last-second extra point. But at the same time, like the Steelers have not been performing, and the Jets therefore should have beaten the Steelers, I think, last week. But I expect them to step up again. I'm not convinced about this Dolphins offense against the Jets D, and I'm starting to love these Jets wide receivers. Garrett Wilson, proper player, Elijah Moore as well. And those 2 running backs, Michael Carter, Breece Hall, look really powerful. Yeah,
so the over could be an interesting look here as well then. Zach Wilson back, of course, for the Jets, second game back. Really hope he has a breakthrough year because he's got a huge amount of talent, a huge amount of pressure on his shoulders given his fractious start to life as a pro. But the big difference is, as you say, he's got weapons around him now. The receiving core is solid. The ground game's there. I'm leaning Fins, but I hear your logic. Rams, Cowboys, what a game.
Big game.
Another, who'd have figured when Dak went down that the Cowboys would be sitting pretty with Cooper, the unbeaten Cooper Rush. Is he keeping the streak alive? Well, he's getting a lot of help from his defense, of course. The Cowboys are allowing at the 3rd least points per game in the NFL. They're leading the NFL in quarterback hits. Micah Parsons picking up from where he left off. 2nd in sacks, 3rd in opposition passer rating. This team, with respect to the great Cooper Rush, is all about the D, isn't it?
Yeah, this defense is incredible. Trayvon Diggs as well at corner. I mean, what a player. Micah Parsons as well. So, yeah, this team's all about the defense. But Cooper Rush, 4-0. Maybe this game's about another Cooper Cup. I think the anytime touchdown
Cooper
Cooper
Bowl,
Cup.
Of course.
Exactly. That's what we should call it.
I hadn't even thought of it, yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime touchdown Cooper Cup's the play here. He's going to be a reasonably short price, but Cooper gets the ball how many times a game? At least 10, 12 targets. Matt Stafford throwing the most interceptions so far this season. But that's because he's targeting Cooper Kupp on every play. The defense knows it. They just can't stop it all the time. I think Cooper's going to run in, go for a few bombs, couple of posts, couple of flies, couple of hitches, and, Cooper Kupp will get a touchdown.
He's got it all in his arsenal, hasn't he? Yeah, okay. Cooper Kupp scoring like that. I think I like the Cowboys in this spot as well. I've seen some ridiculous hot takes that when Dak's back, is there going to be a quarterback controversy? Again, with respect to Cooper Rush. Of course there isn't, but keeps on rolling like this, much as Teddy Bridgewater did a few years ago when he got a backup spot and parlayed his way into a starting gig in Carolina. I think Cooper Rush could be playing himself into an NFL starting spot somewhere else next season. So good on him. And I like the Cowboys quite a lot in this spot. Bengals-Ravens is the final game. Maybe the standout game of the weekend, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. The Ravens coming off a couple of disappointing defeats. They seem to be bottling these big leads. They should have beaten Buffalo after that first quarter, but they threw it away, albeit Buffalo played really well in the second half.
It's uncharacteristic for Baltimore, isn't it? Defensive weakness. If you look at, is it twice out of 4 games this season? They've had 17-point leads or more, and they've blown that.
Yeah.
And that is, if you looked at historically the fundamentals of a Baltimore team, outside of anything else, it is having a stout defense that would if you said to Ed Reed and co that the Baltimore teams of the future are going to be doing that, he would be spitting out his drink. So they've got to fix that up. And it's a difficult spot to do that up against a Bengals offense that's starting to roll.
Yeah, well, the first 2 weeks the Bengals didn't turn up. They were 0-2, but the last 2 weeks have looked a lot better. Joe Burrow seemingly got his accuracy back and zooming in on his wide receivers rather than the corners. So, yeah, I think the Bengals are probably the play in this, but I'm going to be leaving the actual money line and the spread and actually go for an anytime and a first touchdown scorer in the form of Joe Mixon. Now, he's underperformed this year, and I can say that because he's in about 1 million of my fantasy leagues. But at the same time, the Ravens against running backs have been woeful.
Right.
So they faced 4 proper running backs. I'm going to say 4 running backs, one's a QB. But they allowed Michael Carter 6 yards per carry. They allowed Chase Edmonds 6.6 yards per carry. Ramondre Stevenson 6.1 yards per carry. Josh Allen 6.4 yards per carry. That's a ridiculous defense. Joe Mixon runs in a touchdown here.
Love that. What's the T. Higgins situation? How important do you think that will be? Because we were talking to Propo on the Edge Rush show. He's a big Bengals fan, of course. Watches them week in, week out, 3 or 4 times and watch back the game film. He was outlining just how significant T. Higgins is to this offense for obvious reasons. When you've got a number 2 that strong, of course, it either means he's going to fill his boots because there's so much attention on Jamar Chase. And we see this so many times, of course, when you've got a really strong 1-2 tag team. but they are demonstrably different when Higgins is suiting up as opposed to not.
Yeah, well, T. Higgins is good enough to be a wide receiver one, for sure. But obviously, Jamar Chase is held in lofty regard because he's one of the top 5 or top 3 wide receivers in the league.
And he's Burrow's pal as well.
Yeah.
We know that goes a long way.
Like that.
Yeah.
When T. Higgins lines up, it's a lot of it's completely different for the defense. They've got to look out after 2 wide receivers instead of just potentially zooming in on one and double covering him. But I think if T. Higgins plays to his best and Jamar Chase, again, just plays as we know he can, I think the Bengals have a great chance to put up a load of points against this Ravens D.
Underrated Cincy defense, as it was last year as well, of course. A lot of unheralded. We talked about the big stars in that Dallas offense. Cincinnati built a different way. I think a lot of critics thought going into this season it was going to be lightning in a bottle, or last season represented lightning in a bottle. They weren't going to be able to replicate that, but they have stepped up once again. Now, critics will argue that they've been going up against backup quarterbacks by and large, and they're kind of fairly vanilla offenses compared to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, but they got good form against Lamar, haven't they? Last season, they held Jackson to a 69.2 QBR, which by Jackson's lofty standards is way under par.
For sure. And, Lamar Jackson's a brilliant weapon on the ground, but you've got to cover the options through the air, right, to make him run on the ground. And therefore, if you can contain him, that's how you win the game. Now, Mark Andrews is going to do Mark Andrews things this week, but Rashad Bateman's not playing. So I think that the Bengals are in a good spot here. I think if they can contain Lamar, stop him on the ground, they can pick him up a few times in the air and maybe win this game. 4
cracking games. NFL London rolling around once again. Have you got your cheesehead ready?
I have. I'm taking that helmet with me too.
Oh, it's not going to fit though, is it?
No, I was going to put it on, but I shouldn't do that.
No, I think you should do that. We'll try to squeeze you in at some point. All right, brilliant stuff. Now remember, all new SBK customers get £30 in free bets by depositing £10. So if you're going to take into the action that Tom has suggested, best of luck with that. Enjoy NFL London if you're going, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.